Okay, so to firstly correct Councillor Cottrell with regard to her misinformation about what was said at the last month's meeting, nobody called any councillor, I quote, a liar. What I personally did was actually say what the definition of a lie was, deliberately giving information when the person has the truth to hand. And some incidents were given of when that has happened in this town council. And in fact, your minutes acknowledge that. And I could give you a whole ream of information where misinformation was given.
Sorry, Mrs Hennessy. Tell me what that noise is, please.
He's trying to find the mute.
What for me? For me. So was my clock stopped at that point?
Yes, you stopped the clock. Okay.
Is it going to start again? So I wrote to Councillor Cottrell just to send her the video and a recording of not only me giving her some information, but also Lisa Stanley. And we have said so many times that if town councillors want the written evidence, all the sound recordings, all the videos, they can actually access them and ask us for them. But nobody ever does. And so, whilst I think Professor Mitchell said last month, why don't you respond back? I think the reason they don't respond back is because they know that it's the truth. And whilst you may quote every act that you can with regard to legislation, that doesn't stop you as chair, Councillor Cottrell, actually being quite flexible in your meetings and responding. Because in fact, you have responded on subjects which aren't on the agenda and which also aren't issues that this town council is supposed to deal with. Okay, so please remember that. And the other thing I think would be nice to be remembered is for councillors to adhere to their code of conduct. Because if they did, and we didn't see as residents inappropriate behaviour, such as misinformation, then we wouldn't need to highlight those issues here. And remembering that giving misinformation is actually against your code of conduct. And it's the duty of you as chair, Councillor Cottrell, to keep this house in good order. So, moving on. At a meeting yesterday at Castlewood at 6 o'clock, local access forum, the golf course was discussed. Two ladies, Mrs Townsend and Mrs Davey, turned up to speak. I actually turned up to speak as well on a different matter, and that was the seawall coastal path. And the reason I attended was to ask them what is a reasonable amount of time for modification orders to be looked at. I've got a modification order in for the old seawall coastal path, as this town council knows, and there is obviously 2 in for the golf course. Now, we didn't get a definitive answer as to what a reasonable amount of time is, but DEFRA feels that it's a year. But I was certainly quoted 16 to 20 years for them to investigate the old seawall coastal path. But I have written to the committee and actually asked that whilst the seawall coastal path, the access is actually at the moment is open due to the campaign that fought to get that access way open. And with the new England Coast Path initiative that's going ahead, that path may well be part of that coastal line. It won't make it a public right of way, but the important thing I emphasised at the very beginning was to keep that path open. So what title it gets, I'm not too worried about, but it does need to be entitled Access Way. But because the views of the golf course campaigners, it makes the path on the golf course, I feel, a little bit more vulnerable than the old seawall coastal path. So I've written to the committee to say I would be happy for my modification order to be put beneath the golf course campaigners' modification orders, because I think their paths are perhaps a little bit more vulnerable than the seawall coastal path.
Thank you very much for that, Mrs Hennessy.
Sorry, is my 4 minutes over?
It's just about over, yes.
Is it 4 minutes? Did I not have a little bit extra because of the interruption? Want you started again? Oh, okay. Can I just mention a bit of praise for John Clark? Because I know Mrs Davey at the last meeting said nobody in the town council had actually done anything for the seat, the bench that's being reinstated on the pathway. But I would like to commend John Clark because he is a town councillor that has actually gone to the trouble of writing a statement to North Somerset Council, and not just writing a statement, When they came back to him with some quite ridiculous reasons for not wanting the bench there, he then challenged them again. So full marks to Councillor Clark. Don't let people say that we don't praise the councillors when it's due. Thank you.